Operation strategy is the planning or program put into place in order to gain a competitive advantage. Our goals as managers should always be to focus on winning customers, not just meeting customer needs. The following will give you a better understanding of operation strategy in the real world of business.
The purpose of our project was to show real-world application of operational strategy. We interviewed 3 business professionals to have a deeper grasp of operational strategy in practice.
Our first interviewee was Terry Youngblood. He works in design manufacturing industry. He invented an air conditioning accessory that simplifies air conditioning maintenance.
Can you tell us a little bit of your name and what you do?
Yes, Terry Youngblood. I'm president of Easy Filter Base Manufacturing Incorporated. We manufacture an air conditioning accessory item which was designed and patented back in 1988 by a friend of mine, Jerry Jackson. He and I came up with the idea totally out of desperation, I should say. We were air conditioning contractors at that time, and people were having trouble changing their filters on their furnaces. So we had to come up with a solution to keep the homeowner out of their furnace. There was no reason for them to take a door off their furnace. In 1988 also, what prompted all these problems, people would take the doors off their furnaces to change the filter, and then they wouldn't put them back on properly. And a family of 6 in Garland, Texas were asphyxiated because the blower door was not put back on the furnace properly after the filter had been replaced. I came up with the idea accidentally, really, just doodling on a napkin in a restaurant. I drew a box, and Jerry and I sat there and talked about the problems that people were facing, and especially with the new furnaces. The government had insisted that they put safety switches on the blower compartments of furnaces. So we had to come up with a solution to a problem. People would get the doors off, they wouldn't put them back on properly. Then they'd pick the phone up and call their contractors. And this was happening all over the nation. So we came up with an idea. I went to a metal shop, had some made, took them over to the Carrier distributor in Irving, Carrier Bach at the time. They put a few in stock, and they sold like hotcakes.
Basically, you used your expertise to identify a need of the customers, the consumers, that wasn't being attended to or fulfilled, and you were able to satisfy that need. But financially, what kind of benefit did you derive from that personally, or from for your company?
Well, it's been very sweet, to say the least. After 25 years, we sell about, I guess, 100,000 units per year, and which are distributed nationwide. It's been a blessing in disguise for me, and quite an experience. Going out and calling on people like Carrier Corporation, Trane, Lennox, all the major manufacturers. At first, they shunned me. They slammed doors in my face. They didn't even want to waste their time talking to me. But thanks to the personnel and the gumption of the people in Irving, Texas at Carrier Corporation, they bought some of my product, put it in stock, and back then I was the second largest Carrier dealer in Dallas. So I had a little help in that respect, but they put the product in stock, and once the dealers, the air conditioning contractors, once they found out what it was and where it was being offered to them at, they couldn't keep them in stock. It was just incredible. In fact, we had trouble keeping up with the production of the product. It was a big problem. Orders were coming in, and I must say, once Carrier Corporation put these in stock in all 5,200 of their distribution centers in the U.S. and Canada and Hawaii, Once they did that, within 30 days, every manufacturer had called. We were just overwhelmed. But fortunately, we figured out a way to provide this product on a quality basis.
What do you think about flexibility and innovation in operations management? Obviously, it's been important to you in your professional life.
I'm always looking for better ways to do something. If we can find a way to solve, if anybody's got problems, if we can find a solution to that problem, that's the answer.
And do you think time is one of the most important factors for a company to win its customers?
Quality products wins customers. If our product, every one of them is inspected before it's ever packaged, it's got to meet our standards or it's not ever boxed. It never goes out the door. And we have very, very few problems with product. When our customers receive our products, they're right. And that's been one of the main reasons for our success. The contractors that buy our product know they can trust it, that it will stand up to the test of time.
So you have a lot of processes in place for quality assurance.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Can you give an example of something, or
When our product, prior to being packaged, every one of them, the doors opened, the spot welds are checked carefully to make sure that everything is precision built.
so you inspect every single one of them,
Every single one.
as opposed to taking a sample of the production line?
I have a man that does nothing 40 hours a week except inspect product.
Wow.
Nothing gets packaged until, and at least it has to pass his inspection.
Do you think it is more difficult to design services and service processes than goods and manufacturing operations?
Well, I'm not sure how to answer that.
Well, just from the standpoint of now you're manufacturing stuff, but before you were more doing the service call type.
I enjoy the manufacturing. Problems come up, like with our stamping machines. They are precision. They're computer operated. It is just incredible to watch the process. You take a flat piece of steel, feed it into a machine, and it comes out the other end, bent and folded and cut, and it's just incredible.
And so, do you ever think about how goods and services qualify and win orders in the marketplace?
The way I judge that, quality is the winner. If we put out a quality product, one that's needed, it will sell like hotcakes, and it'll be appreciated.
So you have a lot of customer loyalty,
Oh yes,
personal relationships with customers.
yes.
For students wondering why operations management, refining of processes, all of that is so important for business, what would you say to them?
Provide a quality product, stand behind it, give good service, provide the product on time, and you can't lose.
The second person we interviewed was Tom Fino. He worked in food service industry. He's a vice president of service operation of Brinker International.
If you could just tell me a little bit about the company you work for, what they do, what they're involved in.
So the company's Brinker International. They own Chili's and Maggiano's, so we run restaurants. And Chili's has about 1,600 units across the globe, and Maggiano's about 44. So it's restaurant industry, it's serving people, serving guests, retail, and great business to be in.
What's your official job title for Brinker?
So my official title is Vice President of Operations Services, and we would be supporting all the operations teams and anything that goes into that restaurant.
With that job title, can you just give us an example of what you do on a day-to-day, what you're focusing on, what
Yep.
interests you?
Okay, so day to day, we would work on anything that's going to go onto that menu. So any food items that come through, we would operationalize them. So the chefs would say, here's a new item, here's the recipe, and then we would take it and say, okay, now here's how we're actually going to execute it in the restaurant. Here's where we would put it on the line. Here's how much time we would allocate in our kitchen display system to how it would get timed and sequenced. Here's how we would have servers introduce that item and talk about it. So there's a food component, and then there's all the initiatives. The other part we do is we're doing a new, we call it reimage program. So we're changing the way Chili's looks and putting in stone facade and wood tables, and basically spend a lot of money to reimage and look current. Any project like a new point of sale system or a new food cost system would come through this group. We put in our new kitchen of the future. So our group would say, hey, what do we want the kitchen to be able to do? What type of food do we want to be able to cook? So to me, it's like in the center of the target. I'm a project manager by trade, so I love running the big projects.
Just a little bit about your career path. Can you just tell me where you went to school, what you studied on, what you enjoyed about school? Things like
Okay.
that.
So I went to school at California State University in Northridge out in California. And I started as a political science major, thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and then started taking business classes. I'm like, oh, this is it for me. Business administration all the way. So I switched in my freshman year to business, never looked back, and then also did my graduate degree at Rockhurst University in Kansas City. Got my MBA in business administration. So the career path for me was once I finished college, went into kind of the management track, worked at a company called Deluxe Check Printers, and so I managed computer operations, product pricing, customer service. Then went into technology consulting, where I ran projects. So kind of like my path has been the project manager track from then on. And then on to Applebee's, which is a competitor. We don't say that a lot around here at Chili's. And then right over here at Chili's.
Just real quick, a project or accomplishment that you consider to be your number one, the most significant in your career,
Okay.
that brought you here, basically.
Yeah, so to me, there was a project called Carside To Go. So restaurants all do business where you can call and get a to-go order. At Applebee's, so our competitor, the CEO Lloyd was like, hey, you know what, we really want to be able to take the food out to the guest car. And it seems like the most simple thing to do. So it plays perfectly what you're talking about in operations. People would be like, oh, that's easy, just make the food in the restaurant, take it out the car. Well, you need training and process, procedure. So it's like a big project where first you're like, okay, operationally, how do you do that? So what we had to do in the restaurant is set up a staging area where you had like a point of sale, place to put the food, where to ring in orders, where to take phone calls, and then procedures how to get to the car, how to take payment, maybe swipe credit card at the car. So all the different touch points. But basically the reason why that was a big accomplishment, number one, not a lot of companies had done it at the time. And we were doing about 5% of our total sales was to go at the time. So in 6 months, just from doing Carside to before when we hadn't, sales doubled from 5% to 10%, which for Applebee's is $200 million.
Yeah,
So
that's-
it's a $200 million idea in
Yeah.
6 months. So for me, that was like a
Yeah.
and then that propelled my career. They're like, oh my gosh, this guy can run a big
yeah.
project and make it go. So it was exciting.
That's perfect. Awesome. Okay, now just a little bit about operations strategy. This is a big one that a lot of students have a question about is what are the indicators that you need to like start changing your operation strategies, and how much time do you have before your ideas become like implemented?
Okay. Usually there's some indicator from the customer that something's not right or things aren't going well. So for at Chili's, when the economy, I would say 07, 08, 09, when the economy started going the tank, our service numbers were not good, our food scores weren't very good. And so then you got to say, hey, is there something wrong with our business? We felt our model wasn't working. That's when we said, you know, we need to reimage our restaurants, make them look more current. Maybe we need to look at new technology and be able to do different types of food versus the same food we've always done. So the new kitchens allow us to do like, you know, flatbread pizza, allow us to do like, you know, baked pasta, cookies, things that consumers were saying they wanted. So you always have to say, what is your consumer wanting? And if your numbers are showing that you're not successful, then you have to quickly regroup. And a lot of times it's operations. So we made a lot of changes, and I think now we're starting to really, last 2-3 years, seeing a lot of momentum coming out where our customer scores are as high as they've been, food and labor management as high as they've been. So the other component was just fix, you know, make your business really, really profitable. So for us, food and labor is like 60% of our P&L. When we fix that, now if the economy kind of goes into a double-dip recession, we're okay. If sales come around, then we're going to be in really great shape because we're flowing through the profitability. Some of the ideas, like the new point of sale, you might get in 6 months, but most of them are like 6 to 18 months. So like a new kitchen, to roll that to 800 restaurants for the company is probably more like 12 months. You have a reimage program. When you talk about reimaging a restaurant, it's about $250,000 per restaurant. That's taken us 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's like hiring contractors, getting the work done. So I would say most of our projects are 6 to 18 months to get in there. The bigger the company is, it's kind of like turning the Queen Mary. It like takes a little bit longer to move it. If we just have one restaurant and you were the general manager running it, you'd be like, okay, we're going to change this, we'll do that, and it's a little more nimble. But as the company gets bigger, you think about Microsoft, probably, whenever they have a new version of Windows, I think they never like roll it out in 2 months. It takes a lot of time, right?
Yeah. Just because operation hits everything, it hits you have to meet the expectations of your customers, the executives, the board, and all the investors and shareholders. Is there a certain group that in operations you prioritize, or?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We have a strong belief here that if you take care of the guest, then everybody's going to be happy, and you're going to figure it out. So a lot of companies say, you know what, you got to take care of the shareholders. They're looking at this profitability. Our board actually is like, hey, you know what? We've got 4 key results we focus on: sales, profit, our team members that work for Chili's, and then the guest. And if all your guest metrics are going up, you're servicing them better, you're taking care of your guests, you're relevant in this space, then the board's going to be happy because you're going to drive sales and profit. So I don't know if there's anything we've done where we haven't taken care of the guest that hasn't seen our numbers get better. Because sometimes when you say, okay, we just have to take care of the board and make sure that you're making money, you may or may not be taking care of the guests. So there's things that we could do to say, you know what, if we just want to make profit, we're going to reduce portion sizes, we're going to cut some corners in operations, we're going to cut labor. So if we cut food and labor, we're going to make more money. When you cut labor, you go to the restaurant, you're like, man, my servers aren't taking care of me, they don't have enough people on, they're not staffed. And the ones that are, they're over here talking about the weekend. There's a lot of things you can do if you don't take care of business. So if you take care of your guests, I think in any business, you're going to win. And our board believes, hey, laser focus on sales, profit, team member, and guest. And if you do those things, they're going to be happy. So they've actually, last few years, been, hey, Chili's is doing all the right things. When we have bad weather, like we did earlier this year, and the whole category goes down, they're like, okay, that was everybody. It wasn't just you guys. But they're an important constituent, but that's how we've kind of focused on it.
What is like the most important thing as an operations manager you can bring to a company?
I think the most important thing is to deliver results. And so for us, if you have a project or initiative, or you're just in this business and you're saying, okay, we work a lot with the culinary team. If we have great food and we get results and our customer score is going up, then you're going to be considered you're delivering. We put a big focus on food and labor and improving those things. But everything is about getting results. So if you come in like a big environment like this, or 600 people, and you're like, okay, I'm going to come in and do my job and go to a meeting and have some donuts. It's kind of fun, but at the end of the day, if you get results, everybody's going to want you. So Claudia over marketing is getting results. We're like, man, she's doing great. Casey and George are on the East and West, and they're getting results. It's almost like at any company is going to be results oriented, and if you have your goals and objectives, you hit them, you're going to be in high demand, and your company's going to win. So we've just gotten great results in food and labor the last couple of years, so we're winning.
Okay, and then the last question is just for very starting out undergraduate students, what's the most important thing about operations for them to understand?
I think that, and they may already know this, but I mean, operations is like the lifeblood of any company. So here you've got marketing, finance, supply chain, you've got the facilities team, engineering team, but we're about running restaurants. So operations is really the hub. And when I was formerly worked in IT, I'd be like, hey, we're here to take care of the customer, and our term customer is operations. We're about running restaurants. We're not, Chili's is not like an IT shop, I said, hey, if we were Microsoft or Intel or EMC, maybe you could argue that IT has a much bigger presence. But if you think about operations being the group that runs your company, no matter what it is, and saying that's the group that's going to take care of the customer, then I think that's what you want to keep focused on. And so whether it's the supply chain group, they kind of like, hey, we're here to service operations. So we're not just here to get food to the restaurants. If the operators are saying it's difficult, then that's a problem. Versus, hey, what we do? We just work with distributors and suppliers, and we just hope everything's okay. You should always be thinking about what's your internal customer. And in a company like Chili's, it's an operations-driven company.
Our third interviewee was Louis Bowerman. He was the executive plant manager for Mead Johnson Nutrition Company, a food processing and transport corporation.
All right, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, what's your name and where did you go to school at and how did you get to where you are today?
Okay, my name is Louis Bowerman, and I attended the university there in Commerce, East Texas State University at the time, and completed my education there with a bachelor's degree in business administration. So that essentially constitutes my formal education. However, as I went throughout my career, I attended additional seminars that were relevant to the business throughout those years. My path to my current position, essentially I started out as a regular full-time employee in a food manufacturing operation, and then once I completed my education, moved on into more responsible positions at an entry level, and then right on up through plant management and to my current position as site director of 2 manufacturing operations. So, and I think you also asked me about what do I do on a day-to-day basis. My responsibilities are somewhat comprehensive as it relates to manufacturing and the execution of strategy. So it's important to know that that the things that we are doing and the activities that we engage in are aligned with the overall business plan and the overall business strategy. So, you know, on a day-to-day basis, initially we may take a look at how the efficiencies are going, how the plant is running, what the yields look like, what the output looks like, the quality, the cost, and then on a more periodic basis we take a look at financial performance. We look at you know, what our capital investment plans are, probably on a monthly basis, and then we deal with the corporate office on a regular basis with research and development. They come into the plant to run special batches, trial batches, that they where they want to produce special products with new and innovative formulas to try out in special markets, as well as the sales department, the marketing department will come and try out new packaging ideas. So those are some of the things that we do on a day-to-day kind of basis.
And what is your company and your job title?
Yeah, the company now is Mead Johnson Nutritionals, and I am site director with 2 plant managers reporting in.
And so how can an effective operations strategy help a company gain a competitive advantage?
Well, so I think it's important that we make sure we understand this nickel word, strategy. So there are 2 elements there. The strategy is essentially your game plan, and right next to it is the execution part of the business. And so obviously, you know, to have a successful execution, you really have to have a cohesive, comprehensive, relevant strategy that covers the business. So there's a handful of processes that that's in the business where, you know, you're responsible for manufacturing the products and delivering the products to the customers on time. And so that handful of processes must be completed, must be executed in an efficient and effective manner in order for the business to be successful. And the more superior that the operations arm of the business is in executing those plans and that strategy, and the better that strategy is, the more competitive you're going to be in the marketplace. And so you need to be superior in cost, quality, and service.
And where does understanding customer wants and needs fit into operations strategy?
Well, it's the understanding of the customer wants and needs that provides the business with the right target. So, the business needs to know what they want to produce, but they need to make sure that whatever it is that they're producing and they're selling is something that's in demand. And so understanding the customer wants and needs is critical to the R&D department, it's critical to the operations department, because all of those groups must work together in order to produce that value proposition that meets the needs of the consumer.
What is the relationship between evaluating goods and services and operations strategy?
So it's a critical step in the business for operations to monitor its output, to monitor its services, to monitor its products, to ensure that those services and those products are living up to the value proposition that they have made to the consumer and to the customer. Because if there's a gap there, then they're going to lose that competitive advantage. They're going to lose potentially an element of their success. So really their success is built on achieving that high level of superiority in meeting that value proposition. And so it's important to ensure that as time goes along, the things that you're doing, the product that you're making, the services that you're providing are meeting the needs of the business.
How does operations strategy recognize or address competitive priorities, including cost, quality, time, flexibility, and innovation?
Well, an effective operations strategy will include all of the elements that are critical to the success of the business. And so, all of these things, cost, quality, innovation, all of these things are critical to the success of the business. And therefore, if you have an effective operation strategy, those things will be included in that strategy.
How are strategic planning and core competencies integral into operation strategy?
Well, an effective operation strategy will provide for the future, not only the current, but the future needs of the business. So, an operation strategy will leverage its core competencies to achieve the goals of the business. So what are its strengths? What are its abilities? And so every business has certain elements that are core to its business. In my particular business, research and development is a core competency. Actually, manufacturing is a core competency because of the difficulty of the operation and the challenges that are there. So as the business evolves and grows, it continues to take into consideration, always keeping in mind the needs and the wants of the consumer, always keeping that in mind because that provides the target. But then as we look at the opportunities to better meet that target, we look at the R&D group, we look at the manufacturing operation, how can we improve quality, how can we make a product that is more relevant to the needs of the business, how can we reduce cost, how can we be more competitive, how can we sustain the business. And so these elements, if they all fit into the operation strategy. And if you think about the operation strategy, it can be a 5 to 20 year roadmap. And probably needs to be at least a 5 to 10 year roadmap of what the business plans are, what the activities are going to be, and should be reviewed and updated at least on an annual basis. So the elements in the 3 to 5 year section will be more focused, will be more specific, whereas if you look at the plan further out, it may be more verbal, more visionary, less specific, less focused. But nevertheless, each year as you progress through the execution of the elements in that strategy, you continue to update your plans, and a year out here that was more visionary will become more specific and more focused.
Should operation strategy include sustainability?
Well, we have an obligation to future generations to provide them an equal footing. And so I think it's kind of a shame on us if we do things to the environment and we use up resources and we make it even more difficult for future generations to live and have a high quality of life. And so as we go about utilizing the finite resources that are on this earth, it's important that we take a look at the footprint that we make and ensure that the impact that we have is a very positive one.
Can you tell me about a project or accomplishment that you consider the most significant in your career?
Well, I've been afforded many opportunities and had fairly significant responsibility as it relates to financials, capital projects, construction of plants and lines. But I would say the most significant accomplishment in my career has been the development of people. When I look back and I think about where I spent my time, where I invested my energies, I can see that I had the opportunity to mentor a number of individuals that have gone on to become very successful, not only plant managers, but general managers and even higher. And so I take great pride in that achievement.
What are the indications that you need to bring change into the operation strategy of a company? And how much time is generally required to implement the changes?
Yeah, so to start with, an operation strategy is a dynamic, living document, plan that should be changed. There's a statement that says we should continually redefine ourselves to ensure that we're relevant to the current situation. If you ever start losing relevance, then somebody has they have really missed the target somewhere along the way. And we can see businesses all along the way that have kind of become irrelevant. One that kind of comes to mind is Kmart, for example, and you can probably name a few more businesses that have failed to redefine themselves, and so as a result of not redefining themselves, they let their strategy grow stagnant. They did not evolve it, they did not develop it, they did not refresh it on a regular basis. It's a living document, and it's one that should be revised continually. However, at any point in time, during that evaluation process, if you find that there's a decrease in the demand for your products or a decrease in the demand for your services, or for some reason your products are not living up to that value proposition that you've made to the consumer, immediate changes are needed in your strategy right away.
For students wondering why operations is so important for business, what would you say to them?
Well, business does not move without operations. Operations executes and drives the business. Whatever this, there's been many elaborate strategies developed, but that fall silent because they don't have the execution. They don't have the skills, the talents, the abilities to execute on that strategy. So it's important to have a solid strategy. It's important to have solid execution, and operations is the arm of the business that makes that happen. That flawless execution. If we think about sports, you need a receiver to catch the ball and run down the field. If the receiver catches the ball, starts down the field and fumbles it, it's not a flawless execution. So you need solid execution, and the same is true in business. You need solid execution, and that's where operations is so important to the business.
And what is one piece of information that you would leave to the students of the College of Business? Like one piece of advice or something we should keep in mind as we embark on our life's journeys?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that you look at annual reports, and there will always be some mission, some vision. And I'm speaking to businesses that are publicly traded. they're in it for a profit. They're in it to make money. Don't know that whatever you do, it really should be driving to help a business make money. And many people, as elementary and fundamental as that sounds, many people lose sight of the fact that that's what business exists for to start with. It's to make the money. And it's from the money that they make that my paycheck is sourced, as well as all employees. And so it's a good thing for business to make money.
After watching these 3 interviews, we hope you have learned more about operations strategy and the importance of operations as a whole. The 3 biggest takeaways from these interviews as they relate to operations strategies are: create a product or service that you stand behind and make sure your strategy includes quality assurance. A good strategy always puts the customer first. Everything else will follow in suit. And good execution of strategy is just as important as a good plan. We hope you enjoyed our interviews, and thank you.